Today I want to dive deeper in the emo history because today I'm going to talk about Rites of Spring, and the Rites of Spring is seen as the first emo band ever. But I actually wonder what actually was Rites of Spring and how did their music sound like. So today we're going to dive deeper in Rites of Spring. But what actually was Rites of Spring? Well, Rites of Spring was a hardcore punk band that was created in Washington DC in 1984. And a lot of emos say they were the very first emo band ever. But actually the band Rites of Spring doesn't agree with this because they see themselves as a hardcore punk band and that they hate to be called emo. But if they agree or not, all emos see Rites of Spring as their emo daddies, so they all created this shit actually. Well, some of you already might know that hardcore punk was the ancestor music style from emo. The emotional hardcore music style is all created from hardcore punk, and Rites of Spring was actually originally a hardcore punk band, and that's how they saw themselves. Actually the difference is actually that hardcore punk is a little bit punk, and punks were very interested in politics, and the lyrics in their songs were about political things. But Rites of Spring made it a little bit different. They actually made hardcore punk music, but they made really emotional and personal lyrics instead of political. And that's actually why they were called emo. It's not actually sure where the term emo is coming from, but most people do agree that emotional hardcore probably started as an insult, and no hardcore punk band actually wanted to be called like that, and that's probably why Rites of Spring didn't want to be seen as the very first emo band. But yeah, actually a lot of other bands were inspired by Rites of Spring and they followed their footsteps. And that's how the emo subculture started. And I actually like the fact that they hate being called emo. But the whole subculture followed after them. And I actually like it how they hate that. But because they don't like being called emo, yeah, they're very sad about it. But that's also something that makes them very emo. If they like it or not, they're just sad they're called emo, and that's why they're emo. The guy who played drums in Rites of Spring was a guy named Brandon Canty. The bass guitarist from the band was called Mike Fellows, and the guitarist from Rites of Spring was Edward Johnny or something, and the guitarist and singer from Rites of Spring was a guy named Guy Picciotto or something. And I'm actually not going to lie, I want to be fair, but this singer actually looks already very emo. If he likes it or not. Actually, the band Rites of Spring didn't exist for very long. They actually brought out just one album, and this album was called Rites of Spring. It's actually a nameless album. But soon after they brought out this album, they just broke up. But I actually am very curious how they sound like and how their music sound like. So yeah, we're going to listen. Well, this song is called Spring. I actually hear a lot of screamo already in it, and he actually also sounds a little bit like Ronnie Redka, I think. And this song is called Deeper Than Inside. Actually, I think Rites of Spring sounds a little bit of the harder version of emo, and there's a lot of screamo in it, I think. Just like Bring Me the Horizon, but with the voice of Ronnie Redka, I think. Well, okay, actually that's all what I've learned about the first emo band, Rites of Spring. Yeah, I think their music sounds a little bit old, but you can hear a lot of emo in it, and I actually like the history of emo. Well, okay, let me know what you think about this band, and let me know in the comments below. So yeah, that was my new video, so bye!